Doey the Doughman actually devoured Pianosaurus, but how can a living ball of dough with no organs eat anything, let alone a massive dino-like creature? Well, what I found out might change everything we thought we knew about Doey and every other bigger body experiment. It could even hint at what's coming in Chapter 5, but first, there's one crucial fact we need to clear up. These toys do, in fact, need food to survive.
And they ate the bodies to stay alive.
Now, there are some exceptions to this rule, most notably Poppy and the prototype, the latter being directly confirmed to not require sustenance through some hidden text in the Chapter 1 trailer, and we can conclude that Poppy is the same given she survived locked in her case for an entire decade. However, these experiments technically aren't products of the Bigger Body Initiative. Poppy was created by Elliot Ludwig many years before the initiative even started, and the prototype is known to have existed by 1989, while the initiative was introduced in 1990. Simply put, their ability to survive without sustenance likely comes down to how they were created. Doey, on the other hand, is without a doubt an official Bigger Body experiment, and since the previously mentioned trailer near enough confirms that a digestive tract is the reason nourishment is crucial to these toys' survival, it's safe to assume that Doey must have been one as well. So, if that's the case, why does Doey's body appear to have no organs at all, including no digestive tract? Well, considering that Doey can shift his body at will, a feature that was intentionally designed into his bigger body form, it's likely that his biological components, including his blood, are physically fused into the dough that makes up his entire form. It might sound far-fetched, but logically, this is the only conclusion that explains certain moments throughout Chapter 4. For example, when Doey supposedly met his demise after the third chainsaw strike, he appears to dissolve into the ground, no gore being shown, only to fully reassemble minutes later as if nothing happened at all. That being said, Doey does still seem to have an esophagus, not only because this body part is technically just an empty tunnel, but also because of a particular moment after his first introduction where he creepily walks forward while keeping his head perfectly still, with only his neck keeping his head and body connected. Besides, the food obviously has to go somewhere, so when Doey swallows something, it likely travels down his esophagus and ends up in another pile of dough where his hidden digestive organs are stored within. But that still leaves one big mystery. How was Doey able to consume an enormous bigger body like Pianosaurus?
Now that hit the spot. I haven't eaten in weeks.
As we saw, Pianosaurus's head was completely decapitated, suggesting that Doey gruesomely tore him apart before feasting on smaller sections at a time. However, there's something strange about this. Pianosaurus was made of hard metal, so how did a literal Play-Doh toy manage to overpower him? Well, believe it or not, Doey actually had teeth. They can be hard to spot in game, but during the right scenes and under the correct lighting, they're clearly visible. So it's possible Doey crunched down on Pianosaurus's metal parts with tremendous force, otherwise he probably would have choked to death. Unless Doey might have an entirely different method of food consumption. Since his entire body is made of organic dough, it's possible that he absorbs his food simply by pressing it against himself, allowing his flesh-like dough to break it down and process the nutrients. And it's worth noting that Doey ate Pianosaurus extremely quickly and no chewing sounds were ever heard. This makes it even more likely that he simply used sheer strength to tear Pianosaurus into smaller chunks, then absorbed him in the way we just described. If this is true, then it would mean that Doey's entire body is a functioning digestive system, a design that would make perfect sense for an experiment that needs sustenance to survive. But if that's the case, then we have one big question. Why was Doey given teeth if he didn't even need them? We know that Playtime Co. scientists designed each bigger body with their job role in mind. Huggy Wuggy, the security guard, was made with immense strength according to the orientation notebook, allowing him to overpower threats. Catnap was built with a gas delivery apparatus so he could put the Playcare orphans to sleep every night. So with this in mind, Doey's teeth must have served a purpose, and when we piece everything together, there's only one logical conclusion.
If we're to create an experiment that can fulfill multiple assigned roles, we can't allow any single consciousness to throw the others off.
Doey was designed to work multiple jobs within the factory. One of these roles may have been an extra security measure for one of Playtime's many underground facilities in case someone without clearance was to ever find themselves there. If so, Doey's role for this particular job of his would be to make sure no intruders ever came in and went back out alive. This would also explain how he was powerful enough to fend off the prototype twice in Chapter 4, despite him being the most dangerous experiment. Now, even if Doey could absorb food by simply touching it, there's no way this method would work on an entire person, so this may be why he was given teeth, to attack and consume any trespassers who posed a threat. Now, when we compare all of this to how other toys eat, it really makes Doey stand out. Huggy Wuggy was shown to have actual intestines in the Doctor's cinematic trailer, so it's pretty clear how he consumes his prey. A document from the Chapter 3 ARG explicitly confirms that real organic components were used in the creation of Catnap. Mommy Longlegs seems to have a similar organic system to humans, given the massive amounts of blood spilled after her gruesome demise in the grinder. And then there's Boxy Boo, whose digestive system remains a mystery, though it's likely that anything he eats is simply digested inside his mouth, since there's no way he can swallow anything through some twisty springs. So why is Doey so unique? Surprisingly, it probably has nothing to do with the fact that he was made from 3 different test subjects rather than the usual one. Instead, it likely ties into the timing of his creation. Doey is Experiment 1322. Most previous experiments we've encountered were numbered in the 1100s and created during the 1990s. The only exception being Mommy Longlegs' Experiment 1222, who was created in 1991. Even so, she was still a whole 100 experiments before Doey, who wasn't even created until 2 years after this. By this point, the scientists had probably significantly improved their bigger body procedures, learning how to make them even more advanced and efficient. This explains why Doey can shapeshift, travel through walls, and even use 2 different methods for food intake. Simply put, he's far more advanced than those that came before him. What does this mean for Chapter 5 and the future of Poppy Playtime? If you recall, our next location is the very place where these monstrous bigger bodies were created.
Well, rest assured, friend, our state-of-the-art laboratory is just up ahead.
Of course, it's glaringly obvious that we're going to encounter many new experiments here, most likely the later creations made by Playtime Co. before the factory shut down. Since these toys have more advanced biology, they would have been stronger and been able to survive much longer in the cruel, decaying depths of what was once a magical toy factory. I mean, think about it. How do you think Doey managed to successfully protect his toy friends for all those years? And how did he keep himself alive and well until the prototype came along and destroyed Safe Haven? Now, a very likely scenario is that aside from the prototype, the main toy antagonist of Chapter 5 will be Experiment 1424, a character first detailed in one of Chapter 4's many documents. There may not be a ton of evidence for this at the moment, but it certainly wouldn't be the first time an upcoming character was foreshadowed in an earlier chapter.
Subject is stable. Designated 1322.
How do you think Doey eats? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Also, check out this next video here.